Welcome to the first inaugural episode of The Power of Jay Skull. I'm your host, J-Lock, and of course next to me is the bumbling boob himself, Jason. Welcome.
Welcome, fools!
Now, if you're wondering what the hell is this, what have I got myself into? This is a show where us Generation Xers, who are still very young at heart, are going to go back and look at not just the origins of He-Man in the original series, but across the He-Man universe. So this episode today, we're going to start it right at the beginning, and we're going to be talking about the first aired episode, not the first produced episode, of He-Man, and that is the Diamond Ray of Disappearance.
Yes.
So, before we get into the synopsis and that, why don't Bumbling Boob Jason, you tell us your background, your first time you discovered He-Man?
The first time I discovered He-Man, I was but a wee little boy. Growing up in West Texas, I came across this television show and I thought, what is this? It looks like Conan the Barbarian, but there's a little short guy floating around. There's some skeleton dude. I was into it immediately, and I've been into it ever since. As a matter of fact, there was a little part in the 90s where I thought that He-Man didn't actually happen and that it was some kind of fever dream I had. But, the internet was there and I looked back. I was like, no, it was there. And it's still awesome today.
It is. My first discovery of He-Man actually came from a catalogue. So, back in 1982, opening up, a Target catalogue and looking at this unbelievable artwork. This
yes.
gladiator picture of He-Man riding a battle cat. And it was done in that classical art style that they produced for the back of the boxes. And I remember seeing it and just locked in and begging my mum to get me some figures. Now, at that time, the whole toy line was a massive hit before they even were released. And
yes,
it was basically, as soon as they came out, you couldn't get a hold of them. I don't know what your memories were, but my mum, I think, went basically Black Friday mode, knocked out a few old ladies and happened to get me a Skeletor and a Beastman. They were my first two figures. And from there, the love, the obsessiveness about He-Man went along. So I remember the day of seeing this particular episode. It was on a Saturday morning here in Australia. I've seen this, and so I think let's get into it. Let's talk about
Absolutely, let's do it.
So, the Diamond Ray of Disappearance. Now, like I mentioned before, this was actually the first episode shown, but it was actually the fourth episode produced. So, in this episode, see, everything's going to be around He-Man now. Everything's going to have a tour at the end of or a lock or something.
Episode! You're so episodic, episode, you bumbling ninny! I'm sorry, Skeletor.
Skeletor wreaks havoc at the Royal Palace with the Diamond of Disappearance, which transports all who look into it into a timeless dimension. Beastman, Merman, Trapjaw, Triclops, Evelyn, and Panther appear. He-Man tells viewers to watch out for those people who promise a quick way to riches and not to sell yourself short. Clearly, He-Man hasn't heard of Bitcoin because nothing will ever go wrong there.
Of course not.
Of course not. So this episode...
Crypto, what are you doing?
It's a very odd episode to start a series with, isn't it? Because there is no introductions. We are into the storyline straight off the bat.
Yes, apparently they had an episode written, or at least the outline of an episode written, where they were going to do a He-Man origin story, but they decided not to, because syndication, you really don't want to have a beginning or end. You just want the episodes to just go and go and go, and
that's
they
right.
went and went and went.
The first episode they produced was something called the Cosmic Comet.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that episode was the first one But it's a smart move because A, for syndication, and B, if you want to get an audience in, sometimes those introduction episodes fall very flat. And I thought this was a very smart way, if you remember actually going back and watching this episode, how good it was that they so quickly went into the story. They didn't really waste any time here. It was straight into it, which I thought was a very smart choice.
Yes, and I agree, because not only was it just straight into the story, it was straight into a commercial for the action figures.
Well, this is the whole series, isn't it?
That is, yes, the whole series was a commercial for the action figure, but this was just blatant at the beginning, and I loved it because Skeletor did a roll call of everyone. Yep. Evelyn, the sorceress, Triclops, the master of seeing stuff, Beastman is also here. I just love that
type of thing. Yeah, just bring everyone in. So, which is fantastic. But the main part of this story for me, I mean, I'm sure you've got lots to say about this episode, but I thought it was a great episode for the first episode because it showed the family dynamic of the royalty in Eternia, and I thought it kind of set the stage of like Adam's a bit of an outlier here. He's the screw up, he's the guy you can't really rely on, and we get that, and we get the mechanism of Teela really being that one who really is the thing, she really is it, and Man at Arms and his paternal role within it. But but what were your impressions of going back and watching the Diamond Ray of Disappearance probably for the 57th time, I would assume?
Well, actually, I have not seen the episode in many, many years, and I've watched it like 3 times over the last 2 weeks. Whenever we decided we were going to do this podcast, and it's wonderful to revisit this old show. And I kind of went off that, and I revisited a couple of others, which hopefully we'll get to one of these days.
Yes, we will.
But anyway, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe was here to sell toys. And they were awesome toys, but that's what they did. There were a few things about this show that I kind of remembered and I think really lend to its staying power. And one of them, I believe, is Teela. And I know there's dude bros out there screaming right now because there's a lot of hatred for Teela amongst the toxic crowd right now because she was the headliner of Revelations. But if you watch this show, especially for the early 80s, especially in a TV show that's meant for boys, Teela is a feminist icon. Because she is not the damsel in distress. She is not a shrinking violet. From the very beginning, she's the captain of the guards. Yeah. And, whenever trouble happens, she says, hey, we're going to go handle it. And then she starts to leave. She goes, with, the king's permission, I guess. And the king goes, yeah, sure, I get. And by then, Teela's already gone. It's like, got your permission, thanks. She's professional. She's capable. She goes up against these, ruthless villains. And the only time, well, before I even say that, when Adam turns into He-Man, he doesn't say, let's go save Teela. He says, let's go give Teela a hand. Yeah, so even He-Man knows that Teela is, she's it. She's everything. The only time you really see Teela flinch or become kind of, that stereotypical female cartoon character of the 80s is when He-Man shows up and helps her defeat Trapjaw. She just kind of goes, "Thank you, He-Man."
Yeah.
And then he's yes, Trapjaw's getting away. Who? Oh! And then it's back to regular Teela. But yeah, that's the most impressive thing about this episode to me is Teela and how she's portrayed. And, looking back as a kid, I don't even think I saw anything unusual about it.
And I gotta say, as you're describing that, never as a child watching this did I ever went, oh wow, well, look, they're giving the girl a platform here. As kids, we don't kind of process it like that. We just see heroes. I don't think we even genderfy heroes as a kid. We just see heroes,
No.
Like watching Aliens, I never looked at Lipri and went, not bad for a girl. I just went, this character is amazing, it's funny like that. I think it's us adults who put that onto the kids. It's not the kids themselves. But, as much as... And now let's be honest, these are very hammy shows. They're fairly cheesy kind of shows. I've got to say, for the era and for the time, from a storytelling perspective, especially this episode was tight. It was moved very quickly. The story unfolded. It was simple to follow. There were stakes. It was fantastic, and yeah, what a way to introduce your rogues gallery of villains.
And did you notice also how there was no jokes among the bad guys? All the bad
No,
guys were at their most evil, I guess. They're most
yeah,
intimidating. Uh, you know, uh, Trapjaw was kind of shown to be a little bit of an idiot a couple of
a little
times, and
bit.
so was Beastman. But Merman and
Yeah. Well,
Triclops,
Merman, yeah.
Triclops puts He-Man in a bear hug at one point, and He-Man struggles to let go, and I'm just like, dude, this dude is gonna
Yeah.
wreck
I,
He-Man
I
if
have
you're
a
ever giving him.
problem with this little bit here because, like, dude, that's your house. Like, maybe you want to get along with the people in your,
Yeah.
But this is clearly the scene where, yeah, I think, oh, it's kind of gone, but that was Merman at least. But that was from that scene where everyone's getting pulled to go check out Skeletor.
It
You
is
know?
so fortunate that none of them were on the toilet when that happened.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just,
And Beastman,
Skeletor, what are you doing?
here's the question: does Beastman live with him? Do you think? Because Beastman was there straight off the bat, right? Is Beastman like no matter what, I'm basically living with Skeletor.
I think
Like his
that
manservant,
Beastman is
Beastman
basically Skeletor's pet. That's kind of
Ooh,
the impression
yeah.
I have, is that he's there to serve Skeletor, and that's basically his only job. They did a comic book origin of Beastman many years ago where Skeletor, while he was Keldor, not Skullface, but Keldor,
Yeah,
his
yeah.
mortal, saved Beastman from, or actually set him free, because Beastman was being held in a cage, and he set him free, and Beastman just destroyed and murdered everybody who had him held captive, and after that he swore allegiance to Keldor for
Means I have a
setting him
life
free.
debt. Yeah, one of those scenarios. It's
Yes.
like, means I have a life debt.
Yes, yes. And so, I owe you a life debt, Skeletor. Ah,
Okay.
thanks.
what do
Keep
you-
it.
Now, what do you think of this episode? You're going to go with me here. I have this theory around He-Man, and it comes.
You
from
think
a
he's
Quentin
Adam,
Tarantino-
don't you?
Well, this is my thing. Yeah, I have thought that. I'm not convinced yet. Not convinced. No, remember Kill Bill Volume 2, right? Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yes.
And there's this great monologue that Bill does at the end of the film around Superman and Clark Kent.
Yes, I remember
I
that.
think
It's a
that theory
great
kind of
battle.
applies here. I don't actually think it's Adam turning into He-Man. You know what I mean? It's not like He-Man's the costume character. He's playing Adam as the costume character. So Adam is his version of the contempt he has for Eternia and the royal family. That's why he's unreliable. That's why he's white flippant. He doesn't respect Eternia in any way. So he's always He-Man, and the character he portrays is Adam, which is kind of obvious. But I think the way he carries himself is He-Man's opinion on what he thinks of Eternia. Which is pretty dark when you think of it, but kind of fun at the same time. So as He-Man, he's all switched on, but playing Adam the way he plays him is more of a disrespectful commentary on the people he's living with in Eternia. I could be wrong, but I choose to believe that.
Quite possibly.
Other-
I have to kind of disagree with that, because
Go.
he was Adam before he became He-Man.
Yeah,
And so I think if
maybe.
anything, He-Man made him more disciplined.
Yeah.
Those sacrifices and the battles he had to fight made him, a better person. But at the same time, he has to pretend to still be Adam, who's kind of stuck in this perpetual state of, ninnery.
Well, why even go back? Why not just be He-Man all the time?
Because he's got to have a regular life. And he can't have that as He-Man. He can't have his mom and his dad, and he can't.
He would risk his loved ones by being He-Man all the time, just living in Eternia? Do you think that plays into it? He's
I think
protecting
so. Yeah.
the people he
Yeah.
loves.
I think that has a lot to do with it. I also think that Adam sees himself, or he rather sees his position as one of responsibility, because he is a prince, and eventually he's going to have to become king one day. So,
And if you were king, that's when you're like, by the way, I'm like the powerfulest guy in the universe. Just letting you know. I'm the king, but I can also kick ass at the same time.
absolutely.
Okay, here's my theory. Even though that first theory is more a joke theory, here's my second theory about Skeletor, that I like to think he's like the Heath Ledger Joker. It's not really about whether he wins, because I don't think he's interested in winning. I think he's interested in constantly causing chaos and prodding and poking. That's why he's like, "Oh, I'll get you next time, He-Man." It doesn't really bother him too much. It's not about the destination for Skeletor. It's about the journey. It's about being able to mess with Eternia constantly.
Some people just want to see Eternia burn.
Yeah.
Would you like to know how I got these scars? Which scars, Skeletor? This scar.
What? Where is it at on your face, Skeletor?
It is my face, you idiot.
Where? You want to see a magic trick, merman? So that probably second theory works a bit better than my first theory, but he's very chaotic, Skeletor, I think.
Absolutely, but that's why we love the guy.
Well, he's always trying, isn't it? I mean, if you want to give a grade for effort, he gets an A+, right? Because everyone else would have given up at this point.
They should have let Skeletor give at least one moral at the end of the story.
Yeah. No,
in today's episode, you saw me fail for the 96th time. But I didn't give up, did I? No, and I'll be back next week. Next week, I'll get He-Man. You just wait and see.
If you want a lesson on resilience, just watch Skeletor.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. He is a character who... did they ever, and I can't remember, did they ever do the origin of his turn into Skeletor within this series?
Not this series. They did it in the 2000 series, and the 2000 series was amazing. It really was.
I've never seen it. This is part of the show that we're doing here, guys. Believe it or not, there's a lot of the He-Man stuff from the 2000s forward I actually haven't seen. So one of my motivations to do this show is to actually get exposed to all these different iterations of He-Man. So I'm super excited about it.
I'm excited for you because you're about to go on a magic trip.
Yeah, absolutely. But we should probably
in our favorite rocket ship. Flying through the sky. Die, He-Man, die.
Okay, this episode here. So we talked about Teela. You talked about how she was very much core of this. And by the way, people bitching about the Revelations and Teela being like, get over yourself. She's always been a strong character, and she deserved to be frontline in that series. So, I mean,
that series was called Masters of the Universe. It was not called He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. And Teela is a Master of the Universe. Get over it.
Yeah.
It was
now,
an
in this
amazing
episode,
show.
we talked about a lot of footage being reused before we started filming this. They
love that so much.
And one of them, and you said you had something to say about this. I'm going to show you what it is right now. And that's the turn, the classic turn of, I have the power. And it's apparently something to do in this scene. So we'll just show it what we're talking about.
Watch Battle Cat right here, or Cringer turning into Battle Cat.
Yeah.
If you look, his lips move because he has dialogue that they deleted from the sequence. I guess they thought it was too cheesy, but here is what Battle Cat says whenever he's transformed. So I'll do my best Battle Cat impression.
Yeah, here we go.
Here we go. So he roars and then he goes, I have the power too!
Wow.
Yeah.
My mind is blown because I've seen that particular turn 1,000 times, and it's never occurred to me that he was saying something.
I'm glad they cut it, to be honest, because that would have been super, super corny.
Yeah.
I mean, if they hadn't cut it, I probably would have loved it, but looking back at it now, I'm like, no, that's too much. The big green cat turning into a bigger green cat screaming, I have the power too.
Yeah.
I have the power too just makes it a little too ridiculous.
And his Cringer that's the purpose, is to be, I'm a coward, I don't want to do anything, and why do we have to do this? And always trying to, he's very Scooby-Doo as a character in this, isn't he? which makes when he does turn into Battle Cat so much cooler because Battle Cat is awesome. Like
he is. Battle
he's
Cat's
terrifying in many ways. You know,
he is.
When he's at it, you know, you're just thinking, man, if he ever actually wraps those jaws around one of the bad guys, he is going to tear them to shreds.
Yes. And you know, there's speaking of theories, I came up with a theory some time ago and I put it on TikTok that it's basically this. When Adam turns into He-Man, he's still Adam. All right? He's still same personality, same memory, same everything. Whenever Cringer turns into Battle Cat, they're not the same person. Or they're not the same cat.
Very
Two different personalities. I don't even know if they have the same memories. You know, Cringer is not Battle Cat and Battle Cat is not Cringer. Is that why Cringer is so terrified of being transformed? Because Cringer goes away.
Oh, do you think it's like a Bruce Banner thing when he comes out being the Hulk?
That's what I'm thinking, yes.
Like, what did I just do? And a lot of his anxiety and fear is built around him not knowing what is happening. Because you would assume that if he remembered and he transformed back, he'd be like, man, I kicked butt there.
Yeah.
I'm better than I thought I was.
I don't need to be scared of anyone, Adam. I can kill them all. Look at these jaws.
Again. Yeah.
Orko, you want to see a magic trick?
And Orko, by the way, Orko. Now, Orko, for a long time for me, I thought I had an Orko clip, but this is not the
It's
Orko clip.
right. You can't go wrong with Ram.
But Orko, like, is he just like a Ralph Bashki character from the Wizards mated with a Jawa?
He kind of does look
he kind
that
of
way,
does
doesn't
give that
he?
look,
Yes.
doesn't he?
Yes, I'm a huge Orko fan. I know there's a big contingent of the fan base who hates Orko. I love Orko. Orko was...
I liked Orko because he always had the art. He couldn't always pull off everything, but he was very knowledgeable. I never thought that Orko was dumb in any way. I always thought he was highly intelligent. Maybe his execution at times has issues.
Well, the lore is that, you know, he comes from the dimension of Trala, and in Trala he was like an expert magician. He could do no wrong. He was like one of the most powerful magicians, and whenever he ended up in Eternia, Eternia's magic is different than Trala's magic, and so none of his magic works right. So he went from being this all-powerful sorcerer to this court jester. And so, you know, he's knowledgeable, he knows what he's talking about, but he can't get his magic to work. And that's one of the reasons. Another reason why I loved Revelations was because they actually dealt with that, and I thought that was just so great.
Fantastic. Now, the concept of this episode of having a diamond that puts everyone in what I'm thinking is a terrifying, timeless dimension. Like, I think the dark side of this episode would have been cutting to where those characters were when they were in those dimensions. Were they in stasis? Were they aware that they were somewhere else? Many questions.
Well, the sorcerer was able to communicate, so I think they were aware. But here's the thing that bothered me whenever I was a kid, because I noticed this. At the very beginning of the episode, to demonstrate the Diamond Ray's power, Skeletor uses it on a lizard. The lizard never comes back. Skeletor killed a lizard in the first episode of He-Man. He commits murder.
Crikey, that's not good.
Yes, no, it's not.
You know, the resolution, I mean, the fact that we mentioned Teela kind of really being the central figure in this episode and her kind of being the one that we've got to fix this problem. Do you felt that in the end, though, with this episode, that she was given the opportunity to show all about? Because I think they did a good job of showing that she's powerful and she's an important figure in Eternia. But I would have liked her to have completely resolved it herself. And it would have been really... I mean, I suppose you couldn't because it's He-Man. He-Man has to be the one in the end that I have the power. But do you feel that they went as far as they could, but they weren't quite ready yet to go all the way with her, were they?
I don't think that they could, to be honest. Yeah. It's kind of like... You know, I watched the Deep Space Nine documentary, and they were talking about the gay coding of Garrick. You know, saying that we couldn't really talk about Garrick being gay, so we had to code it. In the same way, I think that they had to do the same thing with Tila. Not really gay coding her, but just saying, she's capable, she's a hero, but this is He-Man's show. So he's got to be the one to save the day. And I got to admit, He-Man crushing that diamond as he's disappearing was epic. Absolutely epic. It's probably one of the best endings that this show's ever had.
I'm going to say from a storytelling perspective, this episode surprised me so well how well it was structured.
Yes.
And, movies that cost $100 million can't do sometimes what this episode did. It set it up very well. It gave us stakes. It gave us a really good second act of going on the journey to resolve the issue. And then the third act, the actual resolution of the story was kind of so well executed. It
really was, yes.
And it had no business being this good, did it?
No.
I mean, for a show that was designed to sell toys, any moving thing at 24 frames a second was going to sell toys because
absolutely
the design of these figures was so well done. And we've all watched the He-Man documentary. I wish I remember the gentleman's name who actually designed the core figures. Once you had them, these things were going to sell themselves. The fact that Filmation did such a great job with it is the reason why I think we're still talking about Master of the Universe 40 years after the fact.
Absolutely. And
because it is the 40th year anniversary, is it not?
It is. And I want to build on that, saying that every character that was introduced had something to do. There were no background characters in this one. I mean, there was cannon fodder. There was, Skeletor's Robot Knights, who I just love the Skeletor Robot Knights. I wish they'd make action figures of them. But every character had something to do. Every character had a purpose. Even Ram Man and Stratos, who showed up for no other reason than to say, here's some more toys, kids. Yeah. They still had something to do in that episode. And, I thought it was
Stratos was my favourite as a kid.
He talked like Sean Connery, and that was just wonderful.
Yeah.
Like, hello,
in fact,
He-Man.
I'm not brave enough to get rid of the mustache, but I would go for the Stratos beard if I could.
Absolutely. I love that about Stratos.
Because I love the fact that he could fly and all that type of thing. And, I certainly, as the figure. So obviously in the show he wasn't my favourite character, but certainly just to see him was enough. And again, what a smart way to use this episode, because a lot of kids at this point, before the show aired, because I think the figures were out for about 6 months before, we would have. Well, I knew I had most of those figures already. So there I am with my cereal. Well, how we got it in Australia anyway, because we're other side of the planet. I had most of the figures. So when I'm watching the episodes, cross-legged on the lounge room floor with my bowl of cereal, I had all the He-Man figures there. So the excitement of saying, holy moly, there's Merman. Hey, there's Merman. It's, I think it's hard for kids these days to ever understand what that was like, being that was the period of action figure. To get that kind of thing up on the screen was, such a big deal.
Yeah, I remember watching the first Harry Potter movie in theaters and listening to kids, go, oh, it's Hagrid, it's Dumbledore.
Yeah,
so true. That was kind of a similar situation.
That's 20 years ago. How about kids today, though? It's something I'm missing. And
you just offended me.
Who's today? What would be the franchise today that you think kids are going, oh my?
I haven't seen a movie in so long. I maybe Marvel.
Yeah, they're not all there with their Top Gun Maverick figures. I'm telling you that.
Sitting there with their Nope action figures.
Oh, can
Look,
I get
he's running from the UFO. I haven't seen Nope. I don't know what it's about yet. Nope, don't ruin it for me. Don't ruin it for me.
The Black Phone, and here's Ethan Hawke.
I haven't seen that one yet either. I need to see more movies.
Yeah. One of the great things about He-Man, the show, the animated show, and it was, I don't know who came up with it first, G.I. Joe or He-Man, was the concept of telling moral stories at the end of each episode.
Yes. I loved that as a kid, watching the episode going, what are they going to preach about this time?
Yeah, and it was always, look, as a kid, sometimes you're like, ugh, come on, I want to see He-Man punch somebody. But you go back and you look at these and going, wow, what a smart thing to do is to teach kids some ethics and morals while they're being entertained on a Saturday morning.
They did that
And this
to
one-
make the show educational so they could get away with selling toys.
Yeah, there you go. So mum could be on board then. Oh, this is a nice show. They're teaching about da-da-da. Yes, you can have your figure. But this particular episode is about quick, rich, like not to trust people who show you that you can get rich instantly.
Yes.
Clearly a moral that a lot of us still haven't learned throughout our life.
The 80s were just not a time for that lesson. It just
No,
incompatible time
materialism.
period. Don't,
Especially by the end of that
especially
decade.
by a TV show that was actually using action figures and a cartoon to get rich quick.
Yeah, we're getting into Inception-style hypocrisy here, aren't we? Layers upon
Don't-
layers.
Don't get involved in get rich quick schemes. Tila, count that money somewhere else.
Yeah.
Trying
And
to do
not
a
to
moral
sell
here
yourself-
for goodness sakes.
And the other moral was not to sell yourself short. And I think
Yes.
that's great, you know? And something that we don't do enough of today with our kids, you know, who need it more than ever, is to know they have value. And I always felt that from He-Man. At the end of it, even though we might have rolled our eyes at the messaging, they made sure that their audience was made to feel like they were important. And I
Absolutely.
always thought that was wonderful.
I love the
Panther-
fact that the morals like rolled over into the 2000 series as well. I kind of wish that they had rolled into Revelations, just because
Yeah.
Revelations was so much more adult and, violent. I think
Yes.
that would have just been hilarious. Like in today's show, you saw that He-Man stabbed Skeletor in the chest, when in reality he should have stabbed him right in the face. You have a chance to go for the face. Go for the face.
And I'm surprised you're saying that, because obviously I haven't seen it. And I'm still am, Kevin Smith fan. And I know he would have wanted to have done that.
Oh yeah. I hope he's listening so that he can do it in Revolutions.
You know, if anyone was ever going to listen to stuff like he does watch stuff like this.
Oh,
He-
yes.
so,
Kevin, bring back
Yes.
the morals.
That's it.
Have
He
Jay and
wants-
Silent Bob do it for no reason. Just have them show up. In today's
leave them
story,
alone.
kids.
Maybe just leaning on the wall of Snake Mountain or Castle Grayskull, like they're at the quickie stop.
You kids get out of here! Stop loitering!
Hey man,
Maybe
it's
get
a free street.
No, it's not! I rule the Dark Hemisphere!
Get Beastman to
Beastman,
come up and start
destroy
the-
them! Beastman, where are you?
I'm down here, Skeletor.
Maybe
Get away from there!
Maybe get Beastman to come and start singing Berserker. Berserker.
Oh.
Okay, I want to talk about Panther in this episode.
Yes.
The doppel, like the foe. If He-Man has Skeletor, we have Panther.
Yes.
The opposite for
The
Battle Cat.
anti-battle cat, yes.
The anti-Battle Cat. What are your thoughts on Panther? And do you think he was used enough throughout this?
I don't think Panther was used enough. As a matter of fact,
No.
I was looking at this because Panther and Battle Cat have a battle, and
Yeah.
I think that they only fought like maybe 2 or 3 times in the entire series, and after a while, Panther just stopped showing up, and
Yeah.
this is one of the Panther was cool. I liked Panther.
Yeah.
Unimaginative name, but I liked him.
Yeah, well, I'm going to put it. I like to choose that because Panther was a cat, and we all know cats are a-holes. The Panther went, "No, I'm going to be licking myself today. I'm not coming anywhere near you. I'm going to do whatever I like."
Panther, let's go attack Grayskull! Panther, come here! Panther! Panther, no! No, don't push that off that shelf! No! Well, there went the second diamond ray of disappearance.
That's it. Hey, did you notice? I showed the clip before, but I always thought it was hilarious that they kept the diamond in a diamond ring box.
Absolutely. Well, you
Why
couldn't,
not?
you couldn't
Because
hold
you got
it.
from Tiffany's. There you
Yes.
go. Yeah. If he's only got down on one knee and
Will you marry me, honey? Where'd you go?
yeah,
Where did Amy go? He went to Jared's. Evil Jared's. He went to Jared's from Subway.
You know who I do think they deserved in this? The King and Queen of Eternia. I don't know if I like how they were played out to be. because they come off very airy.
The king...
Like very, like oblivious to what's going around them. And I don't kind of buy the fact that the king and queen of Eternia would be so erudite.
The king is a jerk, but
Yeah.
I believe the queen knows that Adam is He-Man.
Yes.
And I think she knew
there.
from the beginning. Because I was like super He-Man fan, so I would read the comic books that came out back then. And the last few episodes was this amazing story about Prince Adam getting thrown into like 20 years into the future. And of course, since he's not around, Skeletor's taken over, and Skeletor's just basically just straight up and say what?
Was that the Cold Zone?
I don't remember, but Skeletor's just basically taken everybody over, and he finds the king and queen being held captive in Snake Mountain's dungeon. And he tells them, it's okay, I'm going to go find He-Man and I'm going to take care of everything. And Adam escapes and leaves the king and queen there. And the queen just kind of goes, do you think he'll be able to find the sword? And the king goes, I hope so, because we really need He-Man right now. So they're just kind of like, yeah, we knew the whole time.
No. What about the DC coming back to the writing of this episode? And one of the early writers of the series was a very famous DC writer as well.
Paul Dini, yes.
Paul Dini, the creator of Harley Quinn herself.
Yes.
Was one of the writers here, and kind of goes back to what I was saying before, why I thought this episode was so tight. You can feel the influence of people like him writing, and you've got a lot of familiar writers, Larry DiTilio, you've got Robbie London, who did a lot of episodes. Later on, we get down to, I'm very poor at pronouncing his name, but he ended up doing a lot of the later season stuff. It's a Jay Krasinski or something.
J. Michael
like
Straczynski, Mr. Babylon 5, yes.
Yeah. So, and I think that's the other thing is too, because we all look back, and if we think, especially people our age who maybe just had a fleeting fandom of it, this show unfairly gets branded with, that was a cheesy toy-selling thing. And I think people don't appreciate some of the smart storytelling that was done in this show.
Absolutely.
And I hope that's what we're going to show over the next how many years that I'm planning on doing this, even if it's by myself, is to discover some of the great storytelling elements in it. And why this has been the biggest missed opportunity that they haven't given this a full-blown Hollywood production, because I choose not to recognise the Golden Globus mess of 1987. But yeah, a big Hollywood kind of thing, because the mythology is here. Well-written mythology, it's there.
I think that's why we haven't seen a big blockbuster movie, is because the mythology is so huge, and I'm sure that it's, intimidating to try to condense that down into, 90 minutes.
Yeah, well, 2 hours, 3 hours. Look, this to me it's Lord of the Rings meets Star Wars, right?
Absolutely. That's one thing I love about this, is science and technology kind of smushed together.
And it's I'd never seen that before, ever before.
Not science and technology, magic and technology.
Magic and technology, that medieval messed with futuristic kind of things, and they're marrying and organically working together. Because as a viewer, you buy into. Well, I bought into the whole universe.
Mm-hmm.
I bought into the fact that maybe they don't have wallpaper or clean kitchen, but they can fly on magical like air bikes and things like that. By the way, I've forgotten the name of it. What is the name of that vehicle? My favourite vehicle.
The Sky Sled?
The Sky Sled.
Yes.
Which is kind of stolen from Flash Gordon, right?
They kind of lifted a few things from Flash Gordon and from, Conan the Barbarian and everything. Yes.
Yeah, well, Conan, my influence, I've never read the Conan comic books. I
haven't either.
It was just the films. But did he have one in the comic books, did he?
I couldn't tell you. I can tell you, though, that they actually have a mistake in this episode. Because...
who pointed out?
Yes, when He-Man tells Teela to get on her vehicle and head back to the palace, he accidentally calls it a battle ram. Battle ram was not a sky vehicle. That was the Sky Sled. The battle ram was the land vehicle. So yes. I don't know if they just made a mistake or, decided to go with a sky vehicle instead of the land vehicle, but they kept the dialogue the same, so...
You always would have been tricky, because you probably put this edit together and then you've gone, that doesn't work. We really need him on the sky sled for this.
They're just kids. They won't notice. We noticed.
Yeah, they won't notice.
We noticed.
Yes, we grew up and we
We're going,
noticed.
that's not a sky. That's not a battle ram. That's a sky sled.
Isn't it great though? I mean, like that's what shocked me about the blowback from Revelations. One of the favorite things I loved about He-Man is there wasn't really toxic fandom. It was so disappointing that was the first time I'd come across any toxic fandom. Was the blowback from Revelation?
It's always disappointing to be reminded that those people exist.
Well,
The internet's a wonderful thing, but it's given a voice to just absolute trash.
Especially around a show like this, where we live in a world where we're getting new He-Man content.
Yes.
A 40-year-old franchise, and we're getting new material developed. Not just one show. There's 2 current shows in development and running, correct?
Yes. There's the CGI He-Man, which is wonderful, and then there's Revelation/Revolutions, which is amazing. Yeah. And then, of course, there's the rumblings of the Netflix live-action. I don't know if it's going to be a movie or a TV show.
Yeah, I haven't heard any more about it. It was that kid from... They cast someone to play young Adam. I can't remember who the kid's name is.
I can't remember either. I can see him in my head. I just can't remember his name.
Yeah. For some reason, I think it's the kid from Aladdin. Am I right there in saying that he got cast?
I don't think it's him. No, it was a different actor.
Yeah. Okay. I might have just racially profiled unintentionally there, and I apologise if I did, because I didn't mean to. But I felt like that was the kid. Either way, I know there was blowback from that. Who are you casting? He needs to be 6 foot tall with a bob haircut, and he needs to be this. No, doesn't. Like, we've got to move away from things like that.
You know what I want to see? Just to see people's heads explode. Black He-Man.
Oh, yes.
I want to see a Black He-Man. There's a cosplayer, an African-American gentleman who does a He-Man cosplay. And he has the suit, he has everything. The only difference is, instead of the bowl cut, he's got this gigantic afro. And he looks amazing. I would watch him play He-Man in a second. Just, you can even have a White Adam.
No, we can't
White Adam, Black He-Man. Let's do it. I want to see it. I want to see it happen.
Can't do that because your skin pigmentation is different than mine. That's how ridiculous it is.
Oh, there were so many. There were people who were just all up in arms because they portrayed King Grayskull as black. And I'm sorry, King Grayskull was awesome.
Yeah. Well, in a series where we had orange skin pigmented, we had grey, we had blue. It's really,
and some people with no skin.
Exactly, no skin. So that would be. So if you had a problem with that, you'd be a fascist, or you wouldn't be a fascist. You'd be a fascist, wouldn't you?
I wonder if Beastman ever tried to do that old joke. Skeletor, I have a joke for you.
What is it?
Your epidermis is showing.
I'd go with that.
And Evil Lynn's over there.
You don't know what an epidermis is, do you?
No. I didn't know Skeletor could turn red. What's going on?
So for a first episode, if the job of a first episode, and I always use this analogy with trailers, the job of a trailer is to get you interested or more interested in a movie and get you to the cinema. This episode gets high marks for me for being a first episode that is not only to engage you in the story, but to get you to go back to watch the following week. And I think this actually stands very tall across all television, animated or not, of being a great example on how to release a first episode, even though it's produced episode 4, and get people to come back.
Absolutely.
Because
it was
spectacular.
spectacular.
As a man in his late 40s, I shouldn't have watched this episode and gone, I should have been normally I would have been way more critical, but I absolutely fell in love again, like almost at the beginning with the show, because there were so many good nuggets in it. Do you have any issues?
I'm sorry. Like I said, I watched this episode, and then I watched it on YouTube, and then another one popped up, and I was like, I'm going to watch that one. Now I'm going to watch that one. I think I watched like 4 or 5 of them, and I just never never like was this is stupid. No, it was basically like, wow, this was actually a really good show. Even the episodes that came after were just really good.
Yeah, and what couldn't have been the easiest show to come up with storylines, because one of the things I always found with the He-Man universe, and I don't know if Revelations have done this more, was, and it was because it would have been budgetary reason, is the planet never looked that populated.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to come and watch it, you would go, 20 people live on this planet. That's about it.
They call it Eternia because it's an eternity before you see anyone else.
That's right. So I'm hoping did they actually populate their universe? Because I always felt the universe, but maybe that's the mystique of it, that it is a small population, that it is the reason is why Eternia is so valuable is because it having 7 billion people living there. It's just a small kind of community.
Perhaps so. I mean, I in Revelations, I don't remember there being a whole lot of people, spread out. But
yeah,
I mean, there were people there. I don't want to give away too much, but it's definitely a story about people, and
Oh, okay, great.
In He-Man, you've got to have big empty battlefields. It's kind of like Dragon Ball. They've got to have these two people who are going to like fight each other, and they're always like 2 minutes away from this big empty field with nobody in it. So
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, because you can't have people watching, God forbid. But yeah, any things in this episode that you rubbed up against poorly and went, look, really dropped the ball on this one?
Let's see. I thought Man at Arms.
Let me just.
I know. Here's my note. I thought Man at Arms was super out of character, which I can't really say he was out of character because he didn't have a character yet, but he just struck me as being meaner than usual. Because he was mean to Orko at the very beginning. He was threatening him and everything, and that's just like he's kind of a paternal figure later in the series. I think showing him that way at the very first episode was kind of weird.
Well, you're right because we didn't have the build up to their relationship.
Yes,
it wasn't that kind of criticism of Orko wasn't earned to the audience. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They were just like,
oh, this is look at the funny buffoon. Now, why is the man with that thing on his neck yelling at him? I don't like him.
Yeah, that's right. You're yelling at me. Check out your helmet, dude. You're going to pay me out. Now, mind you, Orca. Let's just say this is not a complete bullying scenario though, because Orca unintentionally gets his revenge many times throughout this series.
And they actually take this scene later on, and they what do you call it? Whenever they change it, retroactively retcon it. They retcon that entire scene where Man at Arms is yelling at Orko, and they show after Orko leaves, Man at Arms goes, "Well, I was really hard on him, but I've asked him not to do that so many times." They show it in a flashback, because Orko thinks that everybody hates him, and they show that scene, and then they show that, well, Man at Arms actually does like you. He was just really disappointed with you.
And there's some tragedy around. I would say there's some sadness around Orko too. I always felt that as a character. Yeah, there's pain behind that. He's doing his best, and like you said earlier, in a world where he doesn't have the power he once had, and he's so earnest in his willingness to help in any situation. And then he's happy to entertain the people.
Yes. I mean, it says a lot about him is that he's suffered this gigantic setback in his life, and he's stranded on a world he can never leave, and instead of just feeling sorry for himself or becoming angry, he does his best to make sure that nobody feels the way he does.
Yeah.
And that is just that's a great character thing. It's one of the reasons why I will defend Neelix from Star Trek until I die.
Yeah. Oh, look, come on. That clip I showed of him dancing at First Contact Day, though, that's pretty damn funny. That's some good moves there.
Absolutely.
But you're right about Neelix. Neelix is, the whole thing with Kez and all that guy. His heart was broken so many times throughout that series, and not just by Kez, by the people around him.
Well, he lost his entire family in a war. I mean, and then he's going to hang on to people. He's going to be possessive. I mean, to me, it all made sense.
Absolutely. And with Orko, and I actually don't know this with Orko, we ever get to see his home world? I can't remember.
I don't remember if we go back to Tralla, but we do see other Trollans.
I do know we do see other
Yes,
Trollans.
but I don't remember if we actually go back to where Orko comes from. I think we do, but I could be wrong. It does happen occasionally.
Reveal of him to take off his hat and take off the scarf, and he's like super handsome, like he's like a Brad Pitt looking guy. Like,
Look at He-Man. Now look back at me.
Yeah,
now look
look
at
at
He-Man.
me,
Now
that
back
way.
at me. That's right, I'm your man.
That's right.
He does take off his hat at one point. And he because there's a female Trollan named Drael, if I remember correctly, and it's kind of like a Trollan proposal where they show each other their faces, and so they go off privately. Of course, you never see him; you just kind of see the shadow from the back, and he shows her his face, and she shows him her face, and then they're like engaged after that or something.
Oh wow. Okay, we're going to tie up this episode, but there's one last thing I wanted to bring up. A question. Should have He-Man destroyed the diamond? Was there not more advantage to keep the diamond intact? Or was it the right thing for him to destroy that diamond?
Well, he was told that was the only way he was going to get anybody back, so I think that, he made the right move in crushing it.
So you don't think they
Yeah.
should have gone, I'll point it at myself, let's go and find them, and if I can't bring them out, then you smash it.
Yeah, that's true, but
It's a powerful tool, and I just...
could somebody else smash the diamond, though? That's the question.
That is it kind of got me there. Yeah, I think
Yes.
I'll go with that. I'm happy with that answer.
When the sorceress tells you to do something, you just say, yes, ma'am, and you do it.
Yeah.
She's an owl lady who can turn into a powerless bird for some reason.
Well, yeah.
That was something else that I thought was weird. Is that the sorceress shows up and is like, look over there. It's Zoar. It's the sorceress. Can she help us? No. She's powerless now.
Yeah.
Then why does she do it? She's the sorceress. It's a bird. What's going to happen to her? Oh no! Skeletor just made it disappear.
I made the bird disappear for no reason.
They're just glad they didn't have redneck hunters there, because that owl would be on somebody's wall.
Oh, I'm sure they did somewhere. We'll watch an episode later. There's the redneck hunters. That's why I don't leave the castle anymore in my bird form anymore. Look at this scar.
Okay, why doesn't she leave the castle, though? Why?
She doesn't have any powers outside the
I know
castle.
she's bound to it because of power.
Mm-hmm.
But that must be a lonely existence.
It is, and we get into some of her character later, and we find out why she's there and why she stays where she is. And
Excellent.
She's an amazing character.
Excellent. Well, we're going to kind of tie it up now. We've kind of gone, and this is the type of show it's going to be, guys, where we're just going to free flow, talk about the episode in general terms, go off in tangents as we have, and kind of come on back.
I have to give my final thoughts,
Yes,
though. I
before
have
we
to go
do,
through
I would
my
like
notes. Here
to-
we go.
The bumbling boob to have his comments.
Thank you, Skeletor. Right. So here we go. Oh, I mentioned this earlier. Whenever they're introducing all the bad guys, Evil Lynn is posing up on top of the mountain for absolutely no reason, and she looks absolutely beautiful.
She looks gorgeous. I think do I have that clip? Let me just see
That's
if I
not
know.
Evil Lynn, no. That's not Evil Lynn
it is
either.
Battle Cat. It looks great.
I mean, both of them look
I had the
amazing,
shot
yes.
of her. Oh, never mind. I thought I had the shot of her.
She's
standing.
doing just this Supergirl pose, and it's just, I don't know. I thought that's useless, but she looks awesome.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. Skeletor has a weapon in this episode that he never has again. He has a battle axe with the orb on top of it. And I guess they had not designed the Havoc Staff yet, which is like his famous weapon. So he uses this battle axe like he would the Havoc Staff, and it's weird.
Well, remember with the figure, you got the staff and you got the other half of the sword. Like
yes,
the other
yes.
purple version of the sword.
Well, that was the lore, is that you had to join these two swords before the TV show. You had to join these two swords together, and then you could unlock Castle Grayskull. And they scrapped that for the TV show. Kind of brought it back a little bit for Revelations, but I used to love that. Let's see. Oh, He-Man is basically Conan the Barbarian. The great value Conan the Barbarian. But one thing that I think makes him a classic, timeless character is that he frequently makes use of his intelligence and his empathy towards others. So he's not some mindless brute. He's an intelligent man, and he frequently uses that intelligence to defeat evil because he was never allowed to punch them.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you bring up, because I would say in that period, he was probably the most emotionally sensitive hero we've kind of ever had, really.
Absolutely.
That kind of brooding, big, bulky guy who doesn't have to feel nothing, doesn't have to go, and by the way, kids, don't use drugs.
Or I'll kill you.
Yeah, I'll kill you.
You're doing drugs. And now you're not.
Yeah, it's a big deal to have a character like that. And against type, I would say, for the time, because the type would have been to make him a mindless Arnold Schwarzenegger type.
Yeah, there was another TV show that was on, I want to say either a few years before or a few years after, called Thundar the Barbarian. And it was the premise. Before. Yeah, the premise was very similar to He-Man, but Thundar was the barbarian. He was just, I'm going to smash it. And, you know, none of the empathy, none of the personality. Okay, final note. Triclops.
Yeah, what about Triclops?
Triclops was... You look at Triclops and you think, yeah, he was like one of Skeletor's right-hand men. Do you realize he was only in like 10 episodes?
What?
Yeah, he was very rarely there.
Why do I have the memory he was like all over this series?
I mean, he showed up every now and again, but he was not there nearly as much as Trapjaw and Merman and Evil Lyn and Beastman. Wow. And yeah, it's just, I read that, I was like, that can't be right. And then on all my rewatches, I'm like, Triclops is not here. I don't know.
Yeah,
I guess the Master of Sight was really not that useful after all. Skeletor, do you need me to look at anything? No, we're good, thanks. Oh my God, that guy.
Yeah. And he either goes from happy to angry to sad. That's it. He's got 3 emotions. That's it.
Yeah, we're all filled up, Triclops. Thanks. Is that Spikor at the table? Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Come back later.
Yeah, do you think I hope he doesn't come back later.
He wasn't filled in on the party. But yeah, there you go. A great episode.
I could just see Skeletor sitting down and talking to everybody, and then he sees Triclops there. He's like, oh.
This guy.
This is awkward. Did you not get the email? we don't need you this week. Why not? Because we can see everything already, all right? I don't know what to tell you.
So true. All right, we're going to tie this up. We don't know what episode from what series we're going to be watching next week. We'll decide during the week. We may even come up with a randomized situation like we do on one of our other shows. So I'm going to let the bumbling boob Jason will be thinking about over the next couple of days what episode we'll be watching for our next show.
Well,
so we're not going to do it linearly. We're not going to do it in order. So we're going to just go across the universe and try to pick out some of the episodes that are every episode we're talking about, but certain episodes that have meant something to you, Jason, and will, be a joy to talk about.
Yes.
So that's
we're not just talking He-Man. Also, we're talking about She-Ra, Princess of Power. We're talking about the new adventures of He-Man. We're talking about the 2000 series. We're talking about She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, which was an amazing TV show.
This is not He-Man and the Power of J-Skull. No. Not like it's He-Man and the Master of the Universe. This is a show about Masters of the Universe.
We're going to be talking about them women folk, whether you like it or not.
Damn straight. So, all right, that'll do. That was my worst kind of redneck accent.
I thought it was passable. It's fine.
Passable. Yeah, there you go. All right, guys, thanks for watching our first kind of foray into Masters of the Universe. As you can see, we both love the show. If you want to join us and you want to watch, follow us on our socials. You can follow Jason at Jason Roy Gaston on TikTok, where he's at legendary status, and of course at jasonroygaston.com. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Fantastic. And you can find me behind most supermarkets near the bins, usually about 2 a.m. in the morning. Come and say hi. No, you can find me at
Just don't sneak up on him or he'll cut you.
You can find me at CQ Jason on TikTok, where I occasionally do something. I still haven't figured it out. But also on my other channel at Pop Culture Spread, and of course at the Captain's Quadrant and everything around this channel. So thanks for watching, guys, and we will see you next week for another Do the Title in the best He-Man voice you can, Jason.
By the power of J Skull! Go, 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 go.
There you guys.